Good morning, everybody. How are we doing? This is Jeremiah, and we are having this is one of my favorite webinar subjects. This is going to be a great webinar. I got to tell you, the history of this goes really all the way back, really to 2002. The 2002 ASLA Expo was in San Jose, and my dad and I were furiously working away on our little land effects, and we were thinking we were going to exhibit in 2003. We ended up waiting yet one more year until 2004, but it was in San Jose in 2002, so we thought, well, let's go and check it out. And we're walking through the ASLA Expo, and I would see all these manufacturers. Some of them would have like a CD. Those really savvy ones would say, "Hey, here's a CD. It has all of our details and our catalog and everything on it." And I thought, well, that's cool. Wow, we grabbed that, and I don't remember any had a USB drive then, but maybe some did. But as I'm walking through the halls, and I go, this is the most inefficient process imaginable, right? You got to fly to the city, you got to walk around these aisles. Now you grab a CD from them, you go home, okay, well, it's a different format than the other CD, and you got to figure out what's on there and all that. And I go, this is crazy. This just should be all built into the software. It's from that idea, but we couldn't do that then. We didn't have the staffing, you know. When we got into irrigation manufacture data, that was about that time. I think it was about a year later, but we had hired someone to just start entering in all the irrigation data. And for irrigation, it was easy. It's just data. So we could hire one person to enter that. But for all these other manufacturers, it's not that easy. And it would take a team. And it wasn't until, about 2012 that we really were able to start getting more of these site manufacturers in, because it takes a massive team to get all of that in and get it into the software and have it as easy as just, oh, I pull up a dialog box, I pick a manufacturer, pick a product. How cool is that? So this webinar, you're going to see exactly what I mean by what does that look like in the software, but you're also going to see behind the curtain what it takes for us to do that. And it's just, I love it because it has been a dream of mine for 20 years, and we finally have been able to pull it off, and it's just so cool. So you're in for a special treat. This is also being recorded, so it'll be up on the website later today. You'll be able to show it to your friends and family, and hopefully have as much enthusiasm as I have right now. You are, though, watching this live with us right now. So if you click that Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, stands for questions and answers. And that'll let you type in a question. We're absolutely here to answer your questions live. And note that you'll also be able to just see the answers that we type to other people's questions. So that Q&A box makes a nice little companion while you're with us on this little ride. So let's start that ride. Hey, JR, let's take it away.
Thanks so much, Jaron. Thank you all so much for joining us today. So here at Land Effects, we do have so many tools that are designed to simplify your workflow and give you back that valuable time. One of these tools is a manufacturer connection. So during this webinar, as Jared mentioned, I'd like to introduce you to the manufacturer connection, anyone who may not be aware of the tool. And then for those that have used it, we'll dive a bit deeper and, like Jared said, take a duck behind the curtain there. So my name is JR, and I am here on the manufacturer team, specifically manufacturer success. Today, we're going to go over a quick, here's actually a quick outline, sorry about that. We're going to go over what the manufacturer connection is. We're going to look at it from a designer's point of view, and we have a great treat, a demo by Jake Lott that will go over that more in depth. A high-level overview of the content creation and data entry. We're going to get into what do manufacturers get out of this. We're going to take a sneak peek into the future of the manufacturer connection. And then lastly, we'll have some time for questions and answers. However, we would like to make this an informal Ask Us Anything webinar manufacturer connection edition. So please feel free to ask questions as we go through this, and we'd be happy to answer them in real time. So what is the manufacturer connection? The manufacturer connection is the bridge between the designer and the manufacturer, connecting the manufacturer's products, including the performance data, to the designer. This does provide the designer a hassle-free way to automatically pull in the equipment they are looking for without the hassle of the setup and the creation of all the content and entering all that data. These are broken up into a few different buckets. First bucket is lighting. Lighting tools are available to all users with planting effects and irrigation effects licenses. And here you can see a list of our supporting manufacturers. Next up is Site and Hardscape. These manufacturers and tools are also available to all users with planting effects and irrigation effects licenses. Site and Hardscape encompasses all of our stone and paver manufacturers as well as our site furnishing manufacturers. And finally, we have our irrigation bucket, which is available to all irrigation effects licensees. And here is the list of our irrigation manufacturers. So I do want to take a moment just to welcome someone you may have all had the pleasure to tune into a number of times here at LandFX. Jake Lott is our irrigation specialist. He assists with the usage support and training teams, and just recently took on the role of managing the manufacturer connection and content team here at LandFX. Right now, Jake is going to navigate us through what the designer's workflow is when specifying any of our manufacturer connection partners. So Jake, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, JR. Welcome, everybody. Again, see a lot of familiar names out there because we can't see your face. I am picturing you right now. Special welcome to all the manufacturers tuning in. You guys obviously are here to just check out things just in general, hopefully, so that I can show your product. You know, I am going to try to be Switzerland a little bit and show a myriad of things. As we kind of go through here. What I'm going to show here right now is basically where all of these tools exist. From a user's perspective, if you're not familiar with using any one of these tools, I just kind of want to break these down into their specific buckets. Um, we'll sort of start with irrigation, since he's kind of the high level guy. Been around the longest, have a lot more supporting manufacturers on this side, like Jer said. But if you were to be an irrigation designer, there is no other way to use the irrigation stuff other than to use the manufacturer connection. So just a quick glimpse into how that works. You know, we're not going to go into every single tool, but our irrigation manager is what holds all of our different kinds of equipment. So if any supported manufacturer has any one of these types of equipment, this is where they would fall. So as I'm looking through here and I need to pick a turf spray, for example, if I say new, I am prompted to pick from a nice list of supported manufacturers that hold that type of equipment. The way that we typically focus on what goes in here is in the different categories here, what is the item that drives the data, the performance data. So when we're in a turf spray, we aren't necessarily looking for the bodies per se, but we do like to group these into specific series, typical setups, general rules of thumb as far as how a user would put something together. And as the user goes through here, they get this little bit of an experience on, okay, what kind of models do I have to choose from? The end goal is the emission device in this case. So the nozzles are what is important to us here. But if they go ahead and they pick a specific model at any time, we could click view data and get kicked over to the manufacturer's website so that we have that connection. So like JR said, this is that connection bridging the two together so that we have a live on the fly as I'm designing kind of workflow here. So I'm going to go ahead and pick this guy. We'll add him to the project. And starting the hard work, and JR will kind of show you behind the scenes in a little bit, but this is kind of that front end thing that now the user gets to see what in the world is coming in with this piece of equipment. And you can see all of the nozzles with all of their performance data based on the different pressures. So just like I'd be reading a performance chart in the catalog, this is giving me that on the fly live data. Even if I were to start changing this to say, you know what, I need to design at, a 10% reduction and have my throw be 90% of normal throw, you can see what that would actually be based on all of the stuff. So this data is just dynamically live, changing as we go. So we'll just go ahead and say okay. On the back side of everything, we have a massive database of symbols to pick from, but again, the ability to be flexible for what we want to represent. So to be able to pick from these different types of families for our nozzle styles, and we say okay. And you can see now he is added to the program, ready for me to place. I get to pick from all of the different nozzles, as I go ahead and I pick that adjustable. That data is now live, ready for me to position him into the plan, get to be able to follow lines and quickly lay things out. So from a user's perspective, being able to design and place this quickly is super crucial. But the more important thing is the data that comes along with it. So I can edit any one of these pieces of equipment and see the exact flows coming off of any one of these nozzles here, which in turn helps on the pipe sizing and the stuff like that. So as a quick little snapshot, that's kind of how that irrigation stuff happens. We're gonna jump right over to our next bucket real quick, and again we can jump back to anything else if we got questions in a little bit. So the next one, everything else kind of lives on this site ribbon. Everything is kind of encompassed in here, but we have two different buckets. We have our site amenity section, which is our areas, so our hardscapes and paving and stuff like that, and our amenities, the actual site features. So if a user was to click in the area section and say new, we could place generic, but obviously the point of this is to show off some of our cool manufacturers that are listed here. Um, we could do this the hard way. We could go to the manufacturer's website or even any other website that is listing said PAT files, and you can download them and try to upload them into CAD. But I can tell you, being on the tech support side and on the usage side, that it is not as easy as it seems to just go, here's my files, go ahead and use them. So what we do is we do a lot of work to clean it up so that it's a very, very nice interface, so that as I'm going through here and I want to see what I have available, I can actually pick through and see all of the different styles that a manufacturer would have. And again, being able to go right over to the website, being able to see a specific pattern style. Oh, looks like we are in the middle of switching some stuff, which is always a thing, which is again part of our connection with the manufacturer. Um, so picking one of these guys, adding it to the project, being able to assign our costs and divisions and have an actual description already come in is such a useful thing here. Um, so once we get it put into place, we can go ahead and place this guy into the plan. Now, I might have a complicated area like this, and the tools that we have allow us to pick on specific items and cut things out on the fly. So as we place that, the system will, cut the hatches appropriately. So being able to do that and run a schedule, and I won't run the schedule yet because I want to show a couple more of the other site stuff, but is that quick, okay? Jumping right over to our amenity section, is where we get the opportunity. If I was a normal landscape architect and I had my own standard stuff, maybe I want to just pick my own block because I don't know what I want. But let's go ahead and pick from the actual manufacturer that I'm going to be specifying. Okay. So to be able to choose from and browse just like we were those pattern files and see all of the different styles of furniture and amenities and stuff like that, to be able to click on that bench and see the different models that are available. This is a newer since the last time we kind of showed this off. Um, and one of my most favorite things a part of this manufacturer connection tool is the ability to have the users see what they are picking. What are they specifying in the plan? What options do they have available? And to be able to on the fly change this to be what it is that they're actually specifying is so, so powerful. Um, so being able to do that and add him to the project with that um, little bit of a description on the materials that are going to be specified on it is just so, so cool. So once he's in here, we can obviously now place him. And if I were doing this any other way, the process that I would have to do is, again, go find a model if it even existed, try to scale it properly, try to put him on proper layers, make sure that he's at least sort of clean, and try to insert him. But what we can do is just with this tool on the fly, place him in, and he's already kind of generated and ready for us to use. So very, very easy to manipulate those kind of things. So once we do have all those items in the plan, we're able to run a schedule. And this schedule is going to say, hey, what do we want to show? I'll just click with our defaults for now because I'm not too worried. It's going to look through the whole plan, find all of those amenities, and it's going to give us the square footage for any of those things and a count based on what we've added. So you can see it breaks it down into all of our divisions and really, really nice quantities take off just right from there. So let's jump into lighting real quick. It is in the same spot, just its own little bucket. Lighting is new-ish. And if you have not used lighting, it is awesome. It is, I would compare it to the irrigation side from a performance calculation standpoint, where it's going to be helping you with the sizing of the wires and the voltage drop and all of the things that you would need for an actual lighting plan. Very similar where we say new. We see all of the supported manufacturers, be able to click on a given manufacturer and see their entire catalog or the catalog at which they want to be in the system here. So to be able to go in and browse a path light and pick on one of these guys and actually see what's going on here. Certain fixtures might offer additional options. So maybe I didn't like that one per se. Maybe we go up and see if there's another guy in here. I actually have him in the list, so I won't add him. But you can see I can choose my lamp options. I can choose the actual um, color temperatures from it. And you can see that all of that performance data is on the fly changing, and it's what matches those performance charts there. So once you add the equipment that you want into the plan, you're able to very quickly place him in. And depending on the manufacturer and what they offer, you can actually see this footprint of the light, the IES data file, which is really, really handy to know how that light's actually going to operate. and to be able to place those in an appropriate spot for proper lighting. We can place, additional kinds. So let's see, we've got a directional light here. This one doesn't look like he's got any IES data file, but I can position him to where I want that light to show. Let's go ahead and drop in a few of these guys here. And those directional lights, I think we have some future pending things for how well lights actually throw their IES data file. But I can copy these things along a line, very quickly lay those things out at a specific spacing without too much hassle there. So a lot of different really cool tools on that regard for that. But I'm going to, before I kick this over into my favorite spot, which is SketchUp, to show that correlation, are there any questions that we need to handle?
No, you're good.
All right, cool. So the other half of a user's design workflow typically is to go kick this over into 3D so that they can show the manufacturer or the client what they're actually going to be designing. Now, I am going to not show any of my trees just so that we can focus on what it is that we're looking at here. So I am actually going to just choose the amenities and the lighting. Any manufacturer that is supported and has kind of opted in, ideally we're getting everything in from a 3D perspective, and it's a continual database of work. And so there might be a few holes here and there that we're closing up here this year. But anything that is placed in the plan should be able to come over into SketchUp. And so I'm just here in this file here, and to be able to use this tool to grab all of the locations and in real time show us all of those benches. So we can see here are our little seats that we just added. But maybe, you know what, those just weren't the color that I wanted. So in here, to be able to take and configure that bench and choose a different style of whatever it was, add him to the project and say, okay, and in real time see those change is so cool. One of my favorite things. If I needed to make any changes to the plan, maybe I didn't want that bench there. Maybe I wanted two little seats here or something like that. Strange design, I know, but you know what? That's what we're going with. To be able to, on the fly, kick this back over into CAD here. So I'll sort of make this part prominent, and we'll go ahead and say import. My trees are going to go away, but oh, there he goes. So it moved and adjusted my bench count, and so I don't have to do double work. Okay, we're just trying to make that user's experience the best that it can be. So I think I'm gonna stop it there. I will say the other bucket that we focus on obviously is on the detail side. I'm not going to go too far into this one because we are in the middle of quite a change. And so just know that what we try to do is tie everything that the user is going to need all into one nice little workflow. So to be able to go into our detailed database and pick from the actual available details for a given manufacturer is super, super handy. They're sized properly, they're coded properly, they are ready to just drag and drop into your plan to be able to link to that specific equipment. That's what we're doing is we're just trying to tie all of these different pieces that they would have to do separately all into one thing. So I'm going to leave it there. And I think, unless there's any other questions, JR, I'm going to kind of kick it back to you.
Sweet. Thanks, Jake. So yeah, again, thanks, Jake, for taking us through that. You can see that the manufacturer connection is such a powerful tool for both our designers and our manufacturer connection partners. Now that we got a chance to see exactly how that looked, let's take a look again at our 3 buckets for each manufacturer and look at a high-level overview of what that content creation and data entry look like. So first up is irrigation. What goes into entering irrigation manufacturers so that they can be specified by our designers and consultants? A whole heck of a lot of data. Within that performance data is the flow, radius, arc, pressure loss, etc. A lot of information goes in there. All that data is entered in a way that as the designer chooses a product, they can select additional options such as design pressure, radius reduction, as you saw with Jake, and the corresponding data adjusts accordingly. All of this is based on real-time data provided by the manufacturer. There's also creation of the installation details. You just saw Jake show that detail manager there. All of that is provided by the manufacturers in partnership with us, and we go and we help them create that. And then we take all that information that you could see kind of right here in the top of your screen, and it is now collected in a nice dialog box where you have options and everything adjusts as it should. Next up is lighting. So with lighting, very similar calculations are done based on data provided by our manufacturer connection partners. Data such as lamp options, color options, beam spread options, again, tying into those IES files, materials, finishes, mounting options, and even available accessories. Data is used to calculate voltage drop as well as cross-check proper fixture quantity based on available wattage. So if you place a transformer, it'll let you know if there's enough wattage on that line for each product that's being placed. IES files provide beam spread data to help better calculate spacing, and when rendered into 3D, as you saw, those same IES files are used to create and demonstrate the actual beam spread footprint. Our strict standards are shown here with the importance of proper layer naming. And right above that, you kind of saw with what Jake showed us earlier, this is, again, all of this data that you would typically have to tie in. It is all tied into a nice dialog box where you can simply drop the menu down and select your options. Finally, when we go into site and Hardscape, a lot is received here. So we receive files from the manufacturer that are titled directly from what makes sense in the manufacturer's organizational, data entry. We can form that to CAD standards and try to be as consistent across the board, which is why we have super strict guidelines. We change each file name to a uniform name. On a granular level, we also go into each and every inner pat file to ensure that the file name in the pat file matches the actual file name to avoid any errors being thrown or rendering that file unusable. Once again, our strict standards are demonstrated here as we show the SketchUp files so that file sizes remain optimal and each piece of furniture or product has proper grouping and components created. You can see here toward the bottom what we would receive from a manufacturer may just be what is going to go to their CNC machine to cut steel. We take that and put it into SketchUp and create a 3D rendering of that. Fun land effects fact, there are currently 839,719 rendered images just of our supported site manufacturers products. Each one of those rendered images do take about 2 minutes to render. Took 12 virtual machines to render, which is about 1,100 days of total rendering time and counting. Currently, those machines are running for some of our newer partners, which I'll go over in a few. I've mentioned our strict standards. We use a magnitude of guidelines for every portion of our content creation and data entry. Here are just a few snippets of guides that we use. So site modeling guide, what our SketchUp standards checklist goes, and component names, what they should be named, everything into that. Block creation guide, going through the checklist to make sure the block is properly and correctly created. Here's our detail creation guide. We have guides for literally anything and everything that we do here at LandFX. And again, down to even properly naming each layer so that it is easily managed within the system. So what do manufacturers get out of this? Quite a bit. This is just a high-level overview of what they get, but the ability to present a guest webinar. So all of our guest webinars that you see are a lot of times our manufacturer connection partners presenting a solution to a problem within the industry and then also showcasing a bit about their products. A LandFX landing page to show off said project or products. A custom video that can be played at trade shows or even on their website demonstrating how users would specify them within LandFX. And then again, getting right in front of every designer as they browse and pick amenities. On the flip side of that, from the designer's point of view, you're getting all the manufacturers put right in front of you so that you don't have to go in and search for that data, collect it, input it, and create those blocks and hatches and everything that you need to work on your project. So fast forwarding, something that we normally don't do here is a sneak peek of LandFX's project roadmap specifically for the manufacturer connection. Here are just a few things that are coming up here in the future. An overhaul of our details and detail management. So we are building a detail builder. We are going to be introducing paver colors for our site manufacturers. Fencing and edging, that's coming up soon. More functionality for lighting. Reassigning of the details to the manufacturer products. That goes back over into that detail builder. We are working on completely overhauling that to make it a lot easier for you. And minor drum roll, we are going to be moving all site, Hardscape, and lighting manufacturer content over to Revit and Rhino. Some other awesome news. We have recently welcomed WAC Lighting, Aurora Light, Lifetime Embers, Hydro Rain, Techo Block, Corona Lighting, Monroe, and CalSense. And coming soon, we are happy to announce that our new manufacturer connection partners coming up in the near future is going to be Wishbone, Green Theory, Kitchler, and Desert Steel. Now, all this can't be done without a team behind us. As Jer said, this is 20 years in the making. Started off with an idea and a concept like many things here at LandFX and has turned into an entire team. So you can see our team here. Our team does extend way beyond these folks that you see on your screen. We owe a lot of what we do to our development team, who are always ready to take on the next big project that we ask them for. We tend to be in a meeting and find something that we want done and knock on Forrest or the rest of the development team, and they're always there with open arms to welcome us and take on additional projects. So we ended a little bit earlier than I was anticipating, but I would like to say thank you. Again, my name's JR. I'm here on the Manufacturer Connection team, and there's my contact information. What I'd like to do is open up any questions that you may have that we can answer here in real time.
Yeah, and I think while we're seeing if we get some good questions coming in, and I just want to absolutely emphasize, like you said, is the just the massive amount of work it takes to get one even one manufacturer in, and that's definitely what separates this from from other ventures, because like I said, we have to completely redo all of their blocks and all of their 3D models, or in a lot of cases, they don't have any 3D models. If they do have a 3D model, it tends to be what goes directly into their CNC machines, and so it has every bolt and every piece and part, and that's just too heavy of a 3D model to pull into SketchUp. It'd be like a 50 megabyte file, and that would just be crazy. And so there's just this massive amount of work it takes to basically make these, low polygon 3D models, to make these very good strict layer standards blocks for CAD, and then get, then the data entry part, that's just data entry, but, ties it all together. And then, of course, all that rendering of all of the material options is that other hit. So, it's a bit of a process. And, I was perhaps a little wild-eyed when I said, "Hey, we should do this," way back in the day, because it definitely takes a lot. But yeah, we have some great questions for you guys. So Paul asks, how do we get new products into the platform? And absolutely great question, Paul. Easiest way, honestly, is to just create a tech support ticket and let us know the manufacturer in question. If you have a particular rep who you've been chatting with, that's always a lot better than us just calling their main 800 number. So any person you can give us as a reference, or if you want to even, go one step further and send an email that's CC'd to both of us, that's super helpful as well. So that's absolutely very, very helpful. Jorvin asked about our process and our timelines, and I kind of mentioned some of that. Of course, it sort of depends on how large a manufacturer's catalog is. But basically, yeah, what would you say, JR? I mean, it's for a small manufacturer, of course, is going to be a few weeks. Someone on the scale of like Landscape Forms that has thousands of total product options, that would take a couple of months, really at most. But would you have any more clarity on that?
Yeah, no, I mean, you hit it. And the big thing is that like what we do is we tend to, with the manufacturer partners, we tend to look at that overall project and what their end goal is, and the release of those products into the software is really at whatever cadence the manufacturer is set. We can either do a huge data dump, and that could be, like Jared said, a few months on our end for a large manufacturer, or we can pace that out so that we're releasing little by little, so the manufacturer is not inundated with all of a sudden specifications. Obviously, we know those projects they're not just like specified and immediately go into, production. But yeah, I mean, a few months at most. It really is just depends on the manufacturer.
If I can jump in too, I
Yeah.
think there's another aspect of that too, and it's basically from getting resources and seeing who's in line before you as well, kind of a thing. So it is a bit of a juggling act as far as when um, every manufacturer wants to be in all at one time. So we've got to kind of prioritize. I don't think that we would say we play favorites at all, but it's more what resources are readily available and kind of the lowest hanging fruit to knock it out the quickest so that we can move on and finish stuff out. So I think it's a mix of kind of all of those bundled up. We definitely try our best to juggle all of our content creators' schedules and stuff like that. So whether it's people being out and now we got to put that on hold because we're waiting on something, or even internally showing we're human too, but we might just not have the infrastructure set up quite yet for what the manufacturer is hoping for. And I can say that, we have some really cool stuff coming down the line, and some of what's postponing maybe some data entry is a restructure so that we can, you know, exponentially grow quicker and faster. And so, there is a play, just ebb and flow about development and making sure that we're ready to take on those new manufacturers too. So I guess communication's key throughout the whole thing is all.
Yeah, and that kind of, segues over to Richard's question, which is what is our process for removing drop products? Is this scheduled or done on as needed basis? Um, Jake, I'll let you touch on that more, but it really is based on what we try to with our team, we try to make sure that we are watching and connecting with our manufacturer connection partners on a regular basis so that they'll be able to tell us like, hey, we have new products that are coming out, or we just did a complete revamp of our website. We need to change these website links, or even the products like you're asking, how do we drop them? Those are dropped based off of the manufacturer letting us know, and we have an active document conversation on a regular basis that allows us to manage those products in the catalog so that we are giving you everything that you're hoping for, or take anything off that you may be specifying and then contacting your distributor or the manufacturer and they're saying, hey, these are retired at this point. So that is a regular ongoing conversation. We've recently grown our team tremendously to allow us to have those conversations more frequently, and that's how we manage those products within the software. Jake, did you have anything that you wanted to add about the maintenance of products?
No, I think he hit it.
Sweet. So the last question here that we have is, I'm assuming this is from Deborah. I'm assuming there's an earlier webinar about how to prep all of the digital library or platform. Jake, do you want to take that one?
I might need a little bit of clarification on what you mean.
Yeah, I'm assuming she's asking about, from the manufacturer's point of view. And basically the short, assuming that's where you're coming from, Deborah, so how does a manufacturer prep all their digital content to be put in here? And honestly, it's it kind of depends. Like I mentioned, we will end up kind of recreating all the CAD 2D content and all the SketchUp and Revit 3D content, for the key reason that typically from the manufacturer, they don't maintain small, low polygon, small file size versions of that sort of content. Why would they? It just would never have come to mind. They might have the 3D model that they used in designing that bench and that they feed into their CNC machine. And that's a massive, massive 3D file. And what we can do though is we can start with that file and then we can make the much simpler version in SketchUp that the designer needs. We don't need every bolt. That's just way overloading the file. And so we're going to have to kind of redo everything. Some manufacturers, though, have had some really well done SketchUp models that we've been able to work with. That really cool metal agave actually ended up pretty easy for him. They thought, well, all we have is the flat CNC files. And actually, Jake was able. Actually, that's pretty easy for a skilled
That
SketchUp
was
modeler
that
to
was a fun
take.
one to build.
Oh, I bet. I bet that was a blast. Um, and so so it really can kind of depend. What we'll do is we'll kind of set up a meeting and kind of share some files, set up like a shared Dropbox folder, and you can kind of put in some of your example files in there, and we'll assess them and kind of see what it's going to take. But like I said, for the most part, we're going to kind of have to create this much simpler, very strict content version. You're not going to have your layers named as per our layer name standards. Why would you? That would be silly. How would you possibly have known about our CAD layer standards ahead of time? So there's just a lot of work that we have to do to basically make it compliant with the software and compliant with our standards. And so we have that built in. We have the team, as you saw, to be able to do that. And so we're going to take care of that. So there essentially is this big information dump where once it gets going, then you throw everything into that Dropbox folder, and we just start tearing away at it, and you're looking at it. And an important thing, I can't recall if you mentioned JR, but manufacturers also have access to our portal. And an important part of the portal is where they see their entire catalog listing in the software. And that's the fundamental mechanism that they use to kind of see how we're doing with the data entry, but also addressing that question of, discontinued models or new models, but also helping just have extra eyes on, did one of our data entry people accidentally make a boo-boo and do a typo in a description, something like that. So it's very much a team effort between us and the manufacturers and getting it all together.
And I think I want to maybe just take over for 1 second. I'm going to share my screen, just to point out, kind of on a sort of portal level, but on our website, a new structured spot for manufacturers is the other one that's really nice. What's really neat is that a user can come in and they can actually see obviously more about what the manufacturers are, but getting to know our partners, getting to click onto their page and actually see this is what you as the manufacturer actually see in the portal. It's a nice little interface that you get to see. This is where that video lives, kind of a thing. But you can actually go ahead and click through all of these different guys, and I'm just gonna randomly open up a bunch of these things here so that we can kind of get a sense of all of what we got. This is a lot of different manufacturers to be able to poke around and see. Um, but to be able to see all of their catalogs just like this, see what they offer in the system, just like that. Um, Go ahead. We already saw those guys. Rainbird, right? Be able to go through and look at all of their different products is a really, really cool thing just right on the website. So even if you were just browsing around and you want to go check it out, you get to see what was recently added. Like it's a really cool thing. See any kind of webinars that they might have participated in and request other stuff from them. So a lot of different really cool stuff that you have access to just right on our website. But to answer to one thing that is coming up, and I'm just excited about it too, is from our manufacturer connection pages, we'll be able to request manufacturers. I'm working with our web developer on putting that in so that it's a nice, easy, cleared form to be able to fill out, and it shoots it over to us so that we know what we're getting into. So we're just trying to make the user's requests easier and the manufacturer's requests easier to check stuff out. So, did any other questions come in?
I think that's about it. So I think, I really hope that everyone sees, it's just, growing up in a landscape architect's office, and then, now, of course, doing the software, I've just really come to appreciate that it's a very important part. I think everyone, when you think of the term of a landscape architect, right, you immediately think, oh, plants. Right, you immediately jump to plants, and plants, of course, is a whole separate issue in regards to nurseries. But let's put a pin in that right now. But there's a lot that you do beyond plants, and that immediately runs into all these physical objects that are created by manufacturers. And it is just a nature of the discipline. You're constantly dealing with manufacturer related content. And the only way to pull that off in our software is the way we've done it. It takes a massive undertaking because you need to be able to click on it and it drops into CAD and it's perfect. So how do you have that massive, massive database and all that data entry and everything together? And it's essentially an entirely separate business plan from our original software of Land Effects. It's almost like we should just be partnering with a separate company that handles it. But by us doing it, we're able to say, hey, listen, it's going to take this much work to get your whole catalog in. It's a mutual benefit. It benefits both of us. So, we're not charging to make a giant profit on that effort. And so it ends up being a very reasonable fee. And then the end result, I feel, really speaks for itself. We did have one super last question. Maybe because it would be good to show if we could, is regarding the details. And, can you show a little bit of how the details available and then how they are related or how they're set to a product?
Yeah, we can do that. I will just disclaimer that this is going to be changing a little bit. And so what I'm showing here is my test setup of not the final product of what we're going to be doing here, but we can definitely kind of go over that. So let's if I'm going to go ahead and go through and I pick specific stuff, right? And I'm picking this 11,000 here, and I figure out what I want. I see all this data still, right? Pick my symbol style that I want. And once he's available here, I can assign a detail here. Now, as it sits right now, and this is where the patience of, the restructure that we're doing to be able to assign specific manufacturer details to particular products is coming down the pipeline, which I'm super excited for. But right now, the user can just sort of browse through whether it's their details or they would go and, find the particular spot that pertain to that stuff, but they can actually preview to see what that looks like. Um, I unfortunately don't have one of these ones loaded up that matches that, but they would essentially say okay, and it ties it directly to that particular equipment. So once this piece of equipment is placed and my detail is placed, that when I run my schedule, it tells the contractor exactly what page to go look on for that. So it's not fully automatic, and they do need to pick it for right now. But the goal is to kind of streamline that a little bit more. But yeah, that's where it comes down into.
Oh, it looks amazing. Hey, so on that note, everyone, guess what? It has come to that time of the hour yet again. It's time to bid goodbye. I hope you're going to have a fantastic weekend. It's a little bit of a holiday weekend. Hope you have some eggs and chocolate and whatever ahead of you. It's going to be a little bit of rain here, so that's going to put a damper on my little barbecue I have planned. But I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Keep the ideas coming for future webinars. If there's any aspects, of course, of this manufacture process you want us to dive in deeper, get more clarity on, send us a quick email and let us know that you'd love to see that in a future webinar. That really helps us plan them out. Otherwise, have a good one, and we'll see you next time.